There are games that feel good right away, and then there are games that only get better the more time you spend with them. Not just from grinding levels, but from uncovering new layers, details, and surprises that keep pulling you back in. That's exactly what we're talking about today. Games that keep improving the deeper you go. Let's jump in. Skyrim is one of those games where it feels like the world just keeps going, no matter how much time you put into it. At first, it can feel a little overwhelming. Snowy peaks in the distance, deep caves to get lost in, busy towns full of people going about their lives, and of course the sudden roar of a dragon cutting through the sky. It's a lot to take in, but that sense of chaos quickly turns into freedom. You're not stuck on a single path. You can grow into a sneaky thief, a powerful mage, or a heavy-hitting warrior. However you shape your character, every step feels earned. The real hook, though, is discovery. That cave you almost passed by? It might hold an entire adventure inside. A random line you overhear in a tavern can open a whole new quest line. Even after hours of playing, you'll notice little details in places you thought you already knew. And on top of that, mods keep things fresh. Whether it's new quests, visual upgrades, or totally wild changes that make the game feel brand new. Skyrim doesn't just end when the main story does. It's a world that keeps surprising you, and that's why players never really stop coming back. The Witcher 3 isn't just about swinging swords at monsters. It's about stepping into a living, breathing world that feels like it could keep going without you. At first, it might seem like you're just traveling between towns, talking to villagers, and fighting the occasional beast. But the deeper you get, the more you realize how layered it all is. Every region has its own personality, whether it's snowy mountains, dense forests, muddy swamps, or crowded cities full of politics and secrets. The people you meet don't feel like stock characters either. They react to your choices, and sometimes those decisions aren't clean-cut good or bad. Often, you're choosing between two complicated outcomes, and that's what makes the story so engaging. What looks like a small favor for a farmer can spiral into something much bigger. Maybe political drama, maybe a monster hunt, maybe something tragic you didn't see coming. It feels less like running errands and more like being part of countless little stories. Combat starts off simple but quickly grows into something deeper. You've got your steel and silver swords, magical signs that can stun or burn enemies, bombs, and potions. Every monster has its weaknesses, so you're not just button mashing, you're preparing, planning, and adapting. And as you level up, you can shape Geralt into your own style of fighter, whether that's a sneaky rogue, a tanky bruiser, or a mage-like spell user. Crafting and alchemy add another layer. Collecting rare ingredients to brew powerful potions or upgrading your weapons feels rewarding, especially when the gear you make helps you survive tougher battles. And then there's the extra stuff. You can race horses, gamble at Gwent, which is way more addictive than it has any right to be, explore caves full of monsters, or just wander around and see what you stumble across. The world never feels empty or repetitive. There's always something new to find. The Witcher 3 is one of those rare games that actually gets better the longer you play. The writing is sharp, sometimes funny, sometimes heavy, but always memorable. Geralt himself, with his dry humor and no-nonsense attitude, makes the journey even more enjoyable. It's the kind of game that keeps pulling you back with new stories, new discoveries, and new challenges even when you think you've seen it all. If you want a game that feels like a massive fantasy novel where you control the outcome, The Witcher 3 is exactly that. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of those games that doesn't just impress you right away, it grows on you the more time you spend in it. At first glance, it might look like it's just about riding horses and getting into gunfights, but once you really settle into it, you realize how much more is going on beneath the surface. The world itself is massive, and it rewards you for slowing down and exploring. You'll stumble across hidden camps, strange encounters, and random events that make the frontier feel alive. It's not just a backdrop for the story, it feels like a world that keeps moving whether you're there or not. Then there's your gang. At first, they might seem like mission givers or background characters, but the more you interact with them, the more you get to know their personalities, struggles, and stories. Before long, you start feeling connected to them, and that makes every part of the main story hit harder. They feel less like NPCs and more like real people you're traveling with. Gameplay also deepens the longer you stick with it. Hunting, upgrading your camp, managing resources, all of it gives you a sense of growth as your character and gang become stronger. Even your horse isn't just a mount. The bonding system makes it feel like a companion you actually care about, which is something most games don't pull off. The story is another layer that only gets better with time. On a first playthrough, you're caught up in the missions, but on replays or deeper exploration, you notice little details and choices that change how you see the bigger picture. What seems small at first often ends up being important later. And yeah, the pacing is slower than a lot of games, but that's part of its strength. It gives you time to take in the atmosphere, the music, the scenery, the little character moments. It feels less like rushing through a game and more like living in that world. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just something you play once and move on from. It's a slow burn that gets richer the longer you stick with it. The story, the world, the characters, everything pulls you in deeper the more time you give it. If you're willing to let it unfold at its own pace, it becomes one of the most rewarding gaming experiences out there. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those games that really comes alive the longer you spend in it. At the start, it can feel overwhelming. You're dropped into Night City with its neon chaos, packed streets, and systems you're still trying to wrap your head around. But once you get past that first learning curve, the game starts opening up in a big way. As you play more, you figure out how to shape your character to match your style. Want to go all in on hacking and outsmart enemies from the shadows? You can. Prefer running and guns blazing with heavy firepower? That works too. Or maybe you'd rather focus on cyberware upgrades that make you faster, stronger, or just plain unpredictable. The beauty of it is that experimenting feels rewarding, and the game actually gives you room to find your own groove. Night City itself is the real star here. At first, it's just a blur of lights, ads, and endless streets. But the deeper you go, the more personality it shows. Every district has its own vibe, and every corner seems to hide something. A weird encounter, a secret mission, or a character who seems minor at first but ends up stealing the spotlight later. The main story is strong, but it's the side quests that really shine. They're packed with twists, tough choices, and memorable moments that stick with you. Some of them feel almost as important as the central plot, and they make the city feel like a place full of lives and stories you're just brushing up against. And to be fair, the game has come a long way since launch. With updates and patches, the experience is smoother, more stable, and a lot more fun than it used to be. It means you can focus on the futuristic tech, the wild gear, and the action without constant frustrations. Cyberpunk 2077 isn't the kind of game you fully get in the first couple of hours. It's more like a party that takes a while to heat up. But once it does, you're in for a wild ride. The more time you invest, the more it rewards you with freedom, depth, and a world that feels bigger and stranger the longer you explore it. Elden Ring is the definition of a game that gets better the more time you put into it. At first, it's brutal. You'll probably get flattened by some giant monster in the opening hour and wonder what you just signed up for. The game doesn't guide you with tutorials or glowing arrows on a map. It just drops you into a massive world and says, figure it out. And that's the magic. Slowly, it all starts to click. You begin to understand the stats, the gear, and the wild variety of weapons and spells. You get to shape your character however you want. Sneaky assassin, heavy tank with a colossal sword, or a mage who wipes out enemies from a distance. Once the combat makes sense, finally taking down a boss that destroyed you 10 times before is one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. The world itself is another level. Just when you think you've seen everything, you'll stumble across a hidden cave, a castle tucked away on a cliff, or even a massive underground city glowing like a galaxy. Curiosity is always rewarded, and the sense of discovery never really stops. What's even better is how the game shows your growth. Places that felt impossible in the beginning become easy later on, and you can literally feel how much stronger and smarter you've gotten. It's one of those rare games where your progress isn't just numbers on a screen. You feel it in every fight and every new area you explore. Elden Ring starts off punishing, but stick with it and it transforms into one of the most epic adventures out there. The longer you play, the more it rewards you, with power, with secrets, and with the satisfaction of mastering something that once felt impossible. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those games that keeps growing the longer you play it. At first it's cool, you're exploring, meeting characters and learning the ropes. But the real magic starts a few hours in, when you realize your companions aren't just sidekicks. They've each got their own stories, their own baggage, and sometimes their own grudges. They'll challenge you, argue with each other, and even question your decisions, which makes you feel like you're managing a real group of people, not just filling slots in a party. The deeper you go, the more the choices matter. It's not just fight the bad guy and move on. The game actually remembers what you've done. A decision you made early on might come back hours later, for better or worse. Help the wrong person and you might regret it, ignore a side character and they might not be there when you need them. It gives every decision weight, and no two playthroughs feel exactly the same. Combat also evolves the longer you stick with it. At first it can feel slow or even overwhelming, but once it clicks you start seeing all the possibilities. Maybe you position your rogue on a high ledge for a sneak attack, set up an explosive trap with barrels, then finish it off with a well-timed fire spell. Suddenly you're not just trading hits, you're outsmarting enemies with strategy, and it feels incredible when your plan works. And the writing? That's where BG3 shines. The dialogue, the world building, the emotional moments, it's like you're starring in your own fantasy epic. Sometimes it's heartfelt, sometimes chaotic, and sometimes just plain hilarious. This is the kind of game where a quiet romantic moment can turn into pure absurdity because a giant creature decides to wander into camp. Baldur's Gate 3 isn't just a game you play, it's one that completely pulls you in. It's easy to tell yourself you'll play for half an hour, then suddenly you realize it's 3 AM, and you've been busy talking to companions, solving quests in ways you didn't expect, or just messing around with the world. The more time you give it, the more it rewards you, and before you know it, you're hooked. Persona 5 Royal is the definition of a slow burn that pays off big time. At first, it feels a little strange. You're just a regular high school kid who ends up in trouble for trying to do the right thing. Suddenly, you're sent off to Tokyo, living with a strict guardian above a small coffee shop, juggling school exams by day, and diving into bizarre supernatural battles by night. One moment you're stressing about your grades, the next you're sneaking through a palace that's literally built out of someone's twisted mind. What makes it so addictive is how the story keeps getting deeper the further you go. Every new character you meet has their own problems, their own history, and you're not just a bystander, you're part of their growth. It's personal, and by helping them, you feel more connected to your crew with every step. Combat is classic turn-based on the surface, but it's far from boring. It's all about figuring out weaknesses, swapping between personas like you're commanding an entire roster of powers, and chaining stylish team attacks that look like they came straight out of an anime battle scene. Once it clicks, it's fast, flashy, and seriously satisfying. The Royal Edition takes everything and makes it even better. It adds new characters, new storylines, and a whole extra semester that changes how the late game plays out. Just when you think you've reached the end, the game hits you with new twists that pull you right back in. By the time it's over, you don't just feel like you've beaten a long RPG. You feel like you've lived through something special with a group of friends who became family. Persona 5 Royal starts out a little odd, but the deeper you go, the more you realize why so many people call it a masterpiece. Stylish, emotional, and unforgettable.
There.
At first, Monster Hunter World feels pretty simple. Swing a massive weapon at some oversized lizard and hope it goes down. But stick with it and suddenly you're pulling off combos that look like they belong in an anime fight scene, dodging claws by a hair's length and landing finishing blows with weapons that are bigger than your entire character. The game doesn't hold your hand much in the beginning. It drops you into this huge jungle and tells you to go hunt. Early fights can feel heavy and clunky, like your sword is made of concrete, but that's part of the learning curve. Once you figure out how your weapon works and start upgrading your gear, everything clicks. You go from awkward swings to smooth chains of attacks, perfectly timed rolls, and full-on bullying monsters that once terrified you. The gear system is addictive. Every monster you take down becomes part of your next weapon or armor set. So not only do you get stronger, but you start looking cooler too. It's like wearing trophies from your victories. Yeah, this helmet made it from that dragon I took down last night. The deeper you go, the crazier it gets. New monsters show up, and they're not just bigger, they're unpredictable. One moment you're chasing a T-Rex through the forest, the next a flying lightning beast swoops in and turns the fight into chaos. Every encounter feels like a boss battle, and no two hunts play out the same way. What really keeps you hooked is how much strategy there is under the action. Learning monster patterns, setting traps, picking the right meals before a hunt. It all adds up to this mix of planning and execution that makes every win satisfying. Monster Hunter. World might feel slow at the start, but once it clicks, it's one of the most rewarding loops in gaming. You're always chasing the next powerful weapon, the next wild hunt, and somehow the game keeps finding new ways to top itself. Dark Souls 3 greets you with a punch in the face. No real guidance, no hand-holding, just a bleak world and enemies waiting to crush you. The early hours can feel brutal. You'll fall, you'll burn, you'll get smashed by bosses that look impossible to beat. But slowly, it starts to make sense. You begin to read enemy movements, find hidden routes, and realize how cleverly the world connects together. Fights stop being random button mashing and instead turn into a rhythm. Timing dodges, lining up attacks, and staying patient. Every defeat teaches you something, and each attempt feels like progress. The world itself adds to the pull. Crumbling castles, fields of ash, and small eerie details paint a story without anyone spelling it out for you. It's dark, it's heavy, but it's beautiful in a way that sticks with you. What makes it special is how hard-earned the victories feel. Beating a boss isn't about raw power, it's about focus and persistence. And when you finally land that last blow, the rush is unreal. Dark Souls 3 doesn't get softer with time, you just get sharper, and that's what makes every win unforgettable. Nier Automata isn't just a game, it's an experience that sneaks up on you. At first, it looks like a stylish action game where you play as an android slicing through robots in a ruined world. It feels straightforward in the opening hours. Flashy combat, empty landscapes, and enemies everywhere. But the deeper you go, the more it reveals itself, and that's when it gets wired. The story starts raising big questions about what it means to live, to feel, to fight, and whether purpose comes from choice or survival. It's like a philosophy lesson wrapped in sci-fi action, only way cooler. You play from different characters' perspectives, so each run uncovers new details and twists, layering the narrative until the full picture hits you. By the end, it's not just a story you watched, it's something you felt. The gameplay keeps it fresh too. One moment it's fast hack-and-slash combat, the next it flips into a bullet hell shooter, and then suddenly you're platforming. It mixes genres so well that it never feels repetitive. The combat is smooth, combos flow beautifully, and everything looks ridiculously stylish in motion. And then there's the soundtrack, easily one of the best in gaming. The music sets the tone for every moment, sometimes haunting, sometimes epic, sometimes heartbreaking. There are moments where you'll just stop moving to let a track sink in. What makes Nier Automata really stick though, is how it balances heavy themes with human touches. There's humor, charm, and personality in the characters, especially your little pod companion who throws in some sharp one-liners. It's not just gloom and despair, it's layered with warmth and wit. Nier Automata is the kind of game that lingers with you. It's fun to play, it makes you think, and it leaves you with emotions you weren't expecting. If you're looking for something that's more than just gameplay, something that feels like a journey, this one's unforgettable. Thanks a lot for hanging out and watching the video. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always enjoy reading what you guys think. And if you're new here, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Until then, take care and happy gaming.